there. It might be better if I unmute myself. So hello, welcome to the GhostÉire channel. Rabbiting on to myself for a bit of time there. Okay, so tonight I'm joined by Erica Gammon, writer and author of books connected to the paranormal and supernatural. We're going to be talking about 3 agendas tonight. One of the agendas is going to be first book, Ghosts, Demons and Dolls. The second book, Angels, Ghosts and Demons. And the third book, Possessions, Ghosts and Guardian Angels. Now, if you have any experiences connected to paranormal or supernatural you'd like to share with us, please feel free to comment on this post. Also, you can send us an email, or you can just send Erica an email as well, because Erica has a book coming out and she's looking for people to contribute to it. So if you'd like to contact us at GhostÉire, you can go to www.ghostére.net. You can go to the contact page, fill in the blanks, and if you have a private message, just put in brackets private message. We're also live on the GhostÉire channel. If you go to the homepage of our website and click on the red button, you'll go automatically to the live stream. Also, if you like to contact Erica, I'm first going to introduce you to Erica. Hi, Erica. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you, and thank you for having me.
How are you doing? And if you have any questions, or experiences to share with Erica, please do bring them forward. We'll also be doing a quiz tonight, and the poll has closed, and we will be revealing the results later on. So first, Erica, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Quite enjoying this lockdown, actually. You can get loads done.
True. And it's you have we're going to talk about your experiences and the books you've had out there.
Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to ask you there, what made you get into the paranormal? What was your any experiences yourself did you have with the paranormal?
Yes, I've had paranormal experiences myself. My mum actually got me into it when I was about 5. I may have mentioned previously, or you may have read in the book, that we moved into a new house when my new little brother came along, and they had the back bedroom overlooking the back garden. And we'd been there about 3 days, and she came down one morning. She said, "I had a visitor last night." And I thought, I never heard the door, you'd been a kid. And she said, "No, I had a lady." She said, "I was just rolling over to go to sleep, and I looked at the end of the bed, and there was a lady in white with a shawl round her shoulders." She said, "I think it was a lady who used to own the house, because," she said, "just come in to see if everything's all right." And she said, "I know she was a ghost because I could see the apple trees through her," which is a bit, and I mean, Jesus, come on, I'm 5. But it was so matter of fact, she didn't make a big thing of it at all. So that was my introduction, really. And then when I was a teenager, I moved away from the place I was born, and I used to come back at weekends and stay at my grandmother's house. Well, I used to go down and see friends of mine, obviously on a Saturday night or Friday night. But one night, I remember the first time it happened, I was laying in bed, and it was about 11:30 at night. It was just an ordinary old Victorian terraced house. There was nothing special about it at all. And suddenly, I was trying to go to sleep, and then I heard somebody open a drawer, ruffle through the drawer, slam it shut, the handles rattled, and this, whatever it was, went through every drawer in the whole of the bedroom. Now, there was a tall boy, there was a dressing table with 4 drawers, and next to the bed, there was a wardrobe with a drawer at the bottom, and it even did that one, and I clenched my eyes so tight, I really didn't want to look. And when I got up in the morning and I looked, it couldn't have happened. all the handles had solid wood handles. They couldn't have rattled. So what it was, I don't know. I was too chicken to look. I was only a teenager, though. I was really scared. So
As,
that was
as I said there, I was going to ask you there about, did it, you know, you seen stuff when you were little there, did it continue on to when you were being a teenager? And you just pointed out there as well.
I did have a couple of experiences. I got married and I moved down to Lydd in Kent, which is near Dungeness, near the power station. And that was an old house as well. And put it this way, it was so old, when we moved into it, there was one electricity socket in the whole house. And in the kitchen, it was a concrete floor. And the old lady who'd lived there had worn a dip in the floor where she'd stood next to the sink for so many years. But it was fine. We did the place up and got it rewired and everything. And it was a really nice house. And we could see in the living room. And then suddenly somebody would knock on the door. It was like, well, the letterbox really, but it was a sprung loaded one. So somebody really had to hit it if they wanted to make their presence known. So we go out, have a look around, not a soul. And I don't know who did it or why. Then I remember my husband had gone to work and I was taking some things up to put in the bedroom. And we had creaky floorboards on 2 of the stairs. Now, I'd almost got to my bedroom door and I heard the top stair creak. And I thought, I never heard anybody come in. So I looked around and I'm not joking, there was the outline of a figure and it had on a brown pinstripe suit. It was quite short, but there was no actual face or anything else to be seen. It was literally a shadow in this suit. Well, believe you me, I ran into that bedroom, I threw the door shut and I hid behind the bed. I thought it's going to come in any minute. It's going to come in any minute. And I'm... Anyway, after what seemed like half an hour, I was brave enough that I walked back round the bed and opened the door and there was nothing there. But I know I saw that man in a suit. I'm shivering even now just telling you, actually, because it really was scary. But we also lived in a public that was haunted. It was a pub in Tunbridge. Sorry?
Okay. A pub, was it? A public house?
Yep, and that was in Tunbridge in Kent. Yeah. And it was right behind the railway station. And it was actually built for when the guys were putting in the railroad. So let's put it this way. It was well known to have loose ladies as entertainment. And I'm sure that one of them stayed because the pub was over 4 floors. You had the cellar, the bar area and the living room. And then there were 2 further floors. It had 4 bedrooms on the 2nd floor and another 3 upstairs, but nobody ever used them. In fact, I don't think anybody ever went up there. It was always pitch black. And as I say, we had a lady. We never saw her, but you could smell her roses perfume. You could go into a bedroom and the smell of roses. You could walk down the stairs and it would come past you, the smell of roses. And I remember one day my mum and I were sitting in the living room just watching TV or whatever it was. And she goes, oh, I've got a visitor. She goes, go over and see Erica. And sure enough, this perfume came and stood right next to me. Never saw her, just smelled her. So yeah, I've had quite a few paranormal experiences, really.
And as you were saying, I know it's. would you ever would you make a book of it yourself? Have you shared this? Have you shared this in the book?
I put those stories in the first book, and I must admit, thinking about it, they never really worried me. Not that I like the house in Lyd, when I saw the shadow figure, it's not like I said to my husband, I've got to sell this house, we've got to go, because that was the only time I ever saw it. Although the banging on the letterbox carried on for quite a while. But nothing else.
Okay.
So it didn't worry me at all.
And you have people, obviously, they contribute their stories and their experiences as well, you know. Have you, you know, do you believe in some of the supernatural experiences they have, the occurrences they have, or would you remain skeptical in some ways?
Rude. Having done 4 books, you do get a good feel for bullshit, basically. There's no other way to say it. There have been a few stories that have come through, and I'm looking at them and I'm going, delete. Not very many, I must admit. And really, I started doing this because of all the TV shows that have, you know, paranormal themes there, and there are so many. And I thought, what about the ordinary people that aren't on TV or are not on ghost hunting teams, just general public that have had an experience that haven't told anybody about it? For the simple reason they don't want ridicule, because you know yourself, people can be absolutely awful about the paranormal. You either believe or you don't believe. That's what I think. And the people who disbelieve can be really quite horrible about, you know, people who've had experiences, so they just shut up. And I thought this is the perfect place for them to share their stories, and it's grown really.
And I've seen the books, like we featured one of the books there,
Absolutely.
The 3rd edition there, and you have experienced people as well known, and have appeared on TV, but they've shared their experiences, and people to link that with people that aren't on TV as well is very fascinating, and you get to grips with everyone's type of lifestyle or story, like how they're working and all that. You know, I remember one of the stories as well was like a lady working in just at work, and she was feeling stuff, and stuff was moving there. What would be your own view on like we're talking about, like on the first book we were talking about dolls? What would be your own view on dolls, like haunted objects?
I hate dolls. I hate clowns. With a vengeance, I hate them. In fact, I was looking through the internet a little while ago, and I thought, now dolls, what makes a doll haunted? Or what makes a teddy bear haunted? And in fact, it would, I think, go for any object that, you know, causes a ruckus, if you like, or whatever you want to call it. So I'd like to read actually this foreword from a chap called Stephen Lancaster. He's written a book called Norman, The Doll Who Had to Be Locked Away. And this really actually explains how I think it might be possible. So, specs on, excuse me. So this just says, dolls are one of the most likely objects to become haunted. Why is this? Dolls that have human forms are ideal vessels for residual energy and spirits. Owners, whether adult or child, often form strong emotional bonds to dolls, and they become human substitutes. If something tragic happens to the owner, or if the owner suffers intense unhappy and negative feelings, the bad energy can be transferred to the doll. The energy is residual, but if it is strong enough, it can take on a thought form presence as a bad personality of the doll. Residual energy can be dormant for long periods of time, but if the doll goes to a new home and owner, and the place and person have the right energy, the residual personality can become activated and cause phenomena in the new house. There are other ways that dolls can become haunted. Spirits can be attracted to dolls and take up residence in them. They may be attracted by the doll's owner, by the residual energy lodged in the doll, or other unknown factors. And spirits can range from low-level tricksters to more hostile and powerful entities. They too can be dormant until activated by the right circumstances. In some cases, the spirit might be the earthbound soul of a person, someone who has not made a full transition to the afterlife. An example is a doll owner who dies suddenly and tragically, and for various reasons does not cross over because they were lost, confused, or hanging on to unfinished business. Dolls can also become haunted if they are deliberately used in spirit summoning and spellcasting work. In such cases, spirits are invited to inhabit the dolls. Removing the doll from the premises alleviates the haunting phenomenon in the house in most cases. Sometimes binding spells must be performed on dolls to keep the pesky spirits from getting loose and causing havoc. Earthbound souls need to be helped to the life. If a doll becomes attached due to a spirit attachment to a person, then that becomes an entirely different issue that must be addressed accordingly. So really, I think that quite succinctly puts it very eloquently on the way I feel. I think a lot of it has to do with the person's, and I think that can all rub off. In fact, to any object.
As you were saying, we're talking about, I suppose, the first attachment to a doll is, I suppose, when we're young and when we're very infant, it's probably one of the first toys, if it's a puppet, a teddy bear, or a doll. And I suppose when you're a baby, the first sound you hear is the heartbeat of your mother. And so that's what attracts you to the mother. And I suppose the first object then that you find happiness or intrigues you there is a doll. And I suppose dolls hold that sort of energy as well. Same as what buildings would as well. I just go through a few questions and a few shouts out. So we've got Michael Ryan. Hi, Michael. Michael says, hi, I sorry I missed you. I've been sick. I recently went to Cork City Jail and I encountered a spirit. That's interesting, Michael. So if you want to share more of that, please do that. Or you can, if you stay till the end of the show, I'll give you the details to Erica if you want to share your experience with Erica and have it included in the book as well, if you're interested.
Yeah.
We have Jerry. She says, I have stories. I know Jerry. Now, Jerry, I know Jerry's from Oklahoma. There, Erica.
All right.
And she's been, I think she's done a recent investigation there with Tennessee RAF chasers, I think they're called. And they have their own TV show there but she's I think she's had pictures of her dolls recently on her investigations. I think so. Anyway, Jerry can probably clarify that there.
Hate them. Excuse me.
I know. I'm just talking how good they were. Would you be able to read a short extract from the book, Ghosts, sure. Demons and Dolls?
I will.
Okay, then. So this is Erica Gammon, and I'll pass you on to her. Okay.
Yeah, this story is quite creepy. It's actually from a skeptic, like my husband. And basically, I'll read you the story. It says, as a small boy, my husband Roger lived on a farm near Folkestone in Kent with his father. The farm is on a very high hill and it is still in Roger's family. It is now run by his brother. The fields around are full of rabbits, foxes and badgers. And I love going to the farm as it's bordered by woods and the scenic views are spectacular and you can see for miles. The nearest neighbour is about a mile away. It's a nature lover's dream. Being in such a secluded place, it was not uncommon for back doors to be left open way back. There was never anyone brave enough to try and steal anything, as there were dogs who would bark furiously and alert their owner to a stranger's presence. Besides which, most farmers had guns to hand in those days, and more often or not, they were loaded. The farm did, however, have one problem, and that was poachers. Most of them were chased off by Roger's father, but there was one group who were not to be messed with on any account, as Roger's father told him. They were really unsavoury characters and best avoided at all costs. Roger was quite young at the time and used to go wandering around the farm in the middle of the night if he couldn't sleep. The farm was also used by the army for training purposes, and Roger liked to try and get into their camps without being noticed. On the occasion in question, it must have been very early in the morning, and everyone in the house was asleep when the dogs started barking furiously, waking Roger and his father instantly. They both rushed downstairs as the kitchen door burst open. The group of men who flew into the kitchen were the poachers Roger had been warned about. They were in quite a state and very breathless and frightened out of their wits. When Roger's father asked them what the hell was going on, one of the men told him that they had been setting their nets across the rabbit holes, as they had put ferrets down the holes to flush the rabbits out. They were sitting waiting for their ferrets to reappear from the holes when they saw a light coming down the slope of the bank. It was a man with an old-fashioned lamp walking down towards them. They challenged him and asked what he thought that he was doing. The man answered them, saying, "I have walked these hills for centuries longer than you." Without waiting, they dropped everything right where it was and sprinted back to the farm, which was about half a mile or so away, and they refused to leave until it was daylight. They never went back for their nets, rabbits or ferrets, and they never went near the farm to poach again. So that is the story, and I think it's rather creepy.
Oh, that's wonderful there, Erica, and it just gives me a bit of a chill because it's like sounded like the light in the wilderness. It feels like a jack-o'-lantern type of story.
Well, the farm is pitch black. I mean, there's, as I say, nearest neighbour a mile away. The only thing you've got is starlight, really. And yeah, to have somebody say that to you, whether they were just winding you up, which I don't think they were, then I think that's really creepy. And I'm glad it didn't happen to me.
So we're just going to go on to the quiz, folks, there. And before I give Erica a bit of a break there, and I'll just go on to the quiz. And this is a chance to win a prize up towards Halloween. And so we have people now that are in the draw. We have Michael Ryan, who's out online now. We have Hugh James, Dale Dickinson, and Jerry, who's won it twice. So I'm going to give the clue in a minute there. So this is what the word is. And I'm going to give the clue there. So it's P_Y____M__M__Y. And the clue is to feel. So if you can try and get that before the end of the show, good chance to enter a draw coming up towards Halloween to win a brilliant prize. Hopefully it's a brilliant prize. So it's P_____M___Y. And it's the clue is to feel. And if nobody can get it, I'll pass it over to Erica and see if Erica can get it there. We might give Erica a go. So the next we're talking about the second book in the series there, Erica.
Yeah.
And it's Angels, Ghosts, and Demons. And I'd like to ask you about this before we go on to the book there. Is there any, because you come across many people that have contributed and many teams that have contributed, is there any particular people or teams you would like to join on the evening or meet up personally?
There is one team. I'm not saying I'd like to go on an investigation with them, but they supplied me, I think every member of their team actually supplied me a story. And these guys are in Colorado called Cool's Paranormal. That's C-U-L-Z. It's run by a guy called Keegan Cool. And yes, that really is his name. And they are so prolific in what they actually sent me. I couldn't, believe the stories that they actually they sent, and it must have taken them ages. And I must admit, it was absolutely mind-blowing that they sent so many, and I really, really do appreciate it. So Keegan, if you're listening, thank you. But
that's a cool name, literally.
It is, yeah. Nice. I've spoken to him on FaceTime and, on Facebook and things, but yeah, I'd like to meet them in person, I think, They're a very young team. In young, I mean age. Not the team is young, but them, the investigators themselves are quite young, They're not like in their 50s and been doing it for, forever. But they're just starting out, and well, I think it's taken them a while to get going, but absolutely amazing what they sent, and I'm really, really, really appreciative. Lovely.
And is there any like any locations? I know you're from Galway, yourself, County Galway. Is there any particular places in Ireland or abroad, not necessarily haunted or have supernatural occurrences? Is there any places you like to visit yourself?
There are a couple of places actually. One is over here, and that's Leap Castle. There's a lot of people who have investigated there, and they've said, "Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. You really got to go there." But then other people I've spoken to have been there, said, "Oh, it's just a castle. Nothing really much happened." I think it depends, obviously, what your frame of mind is when you go there. But that's one place. And the other place that I'd like to go to is a little village back in Kent called Pluckley. It's supposed to be the most haunted village in England. And you've got sightings of like headless coachmen. You can hear screaming from the woods, although that might be foxes, of course. But it's supposed to be an absolute hotbed of paranormal activity. So I wouldn't mind going there.
And you mentioned Leap Castle there, as you said. It's loads of people have gone there, and I know that we've been there ourselves. I suppose you get loads of accounts of people contributing to your book that it's the same location as well. You forget probably there might be a common occurrence of the same location coming up all the time, and sometimes, unfortunately, you probably I don't know if that's true. Would you have to cut them out of the book, or
No. Everybody has different experiences wherever they investigate, even if it is the same location. Like Dublin Jail, I've had a couple of those. East Drive in Pontefract, the Black Monk. I've had a couple of stories from there. Although it's strange, not a lot of crossover really. Might be one or two, but no, not really that many. Everybody's experiences are slightly different, and it just depends, as I say, I think, on what sort of frame of mind you're in when you go to investigate as to what results you will get. So that's my reason anyway.
Yeah, it's like I mentioned just Leap Castle again. I suppose it depends on a place is the most haunted, but then is it the most visited then as well? I suppose paranormal investigators would agree on that. Then has it been the most visited location? And there's probably many haunted locations that haven't been visited yet. But that's what does the word haunt mean then as well?
Exactly.
True. Has there been? Do you think, because we're talking about angels, ghosts, and demons, do you think angels and demons exist yourself?
Demons, I think, do exist. Therefore, you have a yin and yang, so therefore angels must exist. I haven't seen either, but there's a story in my book about them. One chap who actually is a demonologist, he gave me a lot of stories, and he filled me in on the background of what you actually have to look for before you can say that's a demon, or you have to make sure there's no mental illness, they're not taking tablets, they're not on drugs, and various other things, and he actually was taught by an American exorcist. He works closely with the Americans, and what he does for free. He will travel all over the place at his own expense. He never charges for what he does. And sometimes, it can be, well, weeks and weeks that, he takes to actually come to the conclusions and gather his findings. But it's like he says, he works closely with the Catholic Church, and you have to have the utmost faith in your own faith. Otherwise, things could go badly awry, which is quite understandable. But angels, as I say, there's the flip side of the coin. So everything has its opposite. So if you have demons, then you must have angels. In fact, there's a guardian angel story in the Possessions, Ghosts and Guardian Angels. I'd like to tell you about a little bit later. So,
True.
And I'll let you make your mind up, because I think that is an amazing story. And it comes from a chap, he's an actual firefighter. So he's not one that gets rankled or, easily. He doesn't go, the slightest noise. He's got to be pretty, rock solid in what he does, So for him to have this experience was quite something.
And as you said, you mentioned about are people contributing more now in the past few years now with their stories more than before, especially when talking about
hard.
Yeah,
it's still hard to sort of like get people to trust you, if you like. As I said to you, I think it was previously, people don't want to be ridiculed, which is why in my stories I won't alter anything that anybody gives me. It's not my experience, it's their experience. And also, of course, if people don't want to be named, they can be anonymous if they want to. It's perfectly all right by me. Just the basic of the story has to be true, to let everybody know what other people experience, really. So that's why I do what I do.
And it's nice there, because you don't get too many people asking you about, like we've contributed as well, and there's other people that have as well. Then it's nice to get to see a whole book about people's experiences as well. You don't see that normally in the paranormal field. There you might get I know there's some books out there called with different counties on, like Haunted Cork and Haunted Dublin and all that there, but this is like a worldwide kind of thing, and everyone can share their own story, and you learn more about different types of hauntings or different areas of the world.
I've had people from Australia, Germany, loads and loads, obviously, from the States, UK, and the list goes on. And it's quite amazing, really, that people are willing to tell what happened, because some of the stories are absolutely quite heartbreaking, really, and very sad. I feel sad reading them myself when I'm sort of going through and editing things, and I'm thinking, some of them get you like that, whereas some of them, they're just like, oh, that happened. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I know.
okay, some of them are not even scary. In fact, most of them are not scary. They're just puzzling. So I like them.
I love reading it. And it was, would you be able to read us an extract from the Angels, Ghosts and Demons book?
Yeah, sure. I did pick a shortish story for you. Basically, this is a sad one, and I shall read it to you. Right. This is from a guy from Cole's Paranormal. His name's Aaron. And he says, my wife, Andrea, lost her father to Parkinson's disease, and on top of that, brain cancer. After being diagnosed with only little time left, he had continued to strive beyond their expectations. Finally, slowing down with time, he decided to go to sleep. We saw it on Skype, so he didn't really get one-to-one time with his daughter, and he loved her very much. We travelled to Florida for the funeral. On that trip, We gathered some of his belongings for personal memories. I unfortunately only knew him for 3 years of his time here, and he was a great person. He was funny and always carried a light in his heart. One of our fondest memories was when he came out of his room. He always pushed a button on a fart machine and groaned, ah. So Andrea and I decided to take this machine home. One night, back home in Colorado, we were sitting back watching TV in the living room. The fart machine was on the counter over next to us. All of a sudden, the machine went off. We looked at each other, knowing that he had made his presence felt. I grabbed the digital recorder and we started talking to him. We both knew he was there and you could feel his presence. I asked him to knock on the wall and we heard a couple of thumps, but we quickly debunked it as the neighbour in the apartment next door. Then I asked him to give me 3 knocks or to press the button on the fart machine because it made Andrea laugh. We got a voice on the recorder. It said, "Andrea, I love you." When I heard that EVP, I felt he was there to make sure she was okay and to let her know he was okay and to say goodbye. He sounded very at peace. Not everybody gets that chance to say goodbye, but he made sure that she got that. Later, Andrea's mum came to visit and we played her the EVP and she looked at us with sad eyes and said, "That was him. That was Ted's voice." We also captured orbs around our apartment, but the EVP will always let us know he's in a good place and his light still shines. R.I.P. Ted Schwartz, March the 3rd, 1946 to 26th of April, 2012.
And
so
that was an extract from...
That was sad.
Go ahead, Dad. I know,
that was
it's
Ghosts and Demons. Yeah,
it's a sad, but I suppose then as well, then it's a kind of comforting as well. Then you hear the voice then as well, and it's that's probably why some of us do paranormal or are involved in this sort of subject there as well. I'll just go over, just go back to before we go back to talking about the third installment there. I'm just going to go quickly back to the quiz.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna drink.
I'm going to give a clue now to that, and if nobody gets it, I'm a bit of a sip of water. I know it can be thirsty reading out. Folks, nobody's got the answer yet. So Jerry, if you're listening in there, you're taking your time. The quiz is the word is P_Y___M_________________________________________________________________________________________________ And the first clue was to feel, and the second clue is touching inanimate objects. So it's to feel and touching inanimate objects. So it's P_Y_______M________Y. And if you can get that word, it's to feel and to touch inanimate objects. If you have any experiences as well there, you can share with us.
Sorry?
Oh, you don't? I hope somebody gets the answer. Is that?
Yeah, I don't want to do it.
Yeah. So if it doesn't anyway, it goes through. We'll carry on with it's a weekly draw anyway. So it's a weekly quiz. So at the end of October, we do a draw anyway to see who can win. So we're talking about the third book now, which is Possessions, Ghosts, and Guardian Angels. Before we talk about it, is there any more about yourself there? Is there any interests you have yourself, bar the writing and being an author and that yourself? Is there any more interests you have in your life, bar Roger?
I read tons and tons of books. I used, when I was young, to read every ghost story I could get my hands on, or every horror story I could get my hands on. But since I've got older, I've sort of gone away from that. I think the last author that I read a lot of in that vein was Dean Koontz, because I quite like his stories. The Brother Odd series was quite good. I quite like those. If you haven't read them, have a go, because some of it is quite funny, but some of them it's quite dark in places. And then now I've got into reading not so much medieval history, but medieval whodunits, if you like. And I'm quite into those. Yeah, definitely. Change of tack.
Yeah. And that probably leads on to the next question I was going to ask you then, as a historical figures. Is there any historical figures that you'd like to even write about there?
I think the life of Joan of Arc was quite interesting. Now, I'm not a religious person at all, but obviously she thought she was being guided by God. And I would love to delve a bit deeper and find out, in more detail exactly what, if I was going to write about anybody, it would be maybe her. Or perhaps, I think I'd like to find out about the pirates, Blackbeard and, because all the swashbuckling and, I'd like to find out where their treasure's buried. Then I wouldn't have to write anymore, or even win the lottery. I have to write anymore. I think we all I must admit,
that's definitely.
Yeah, after the fourth book, I thought, I'm not going to do any more of these. I'm going to win the lottery. I'll go and live on a desert island, but I get bored so easily that, I thought, I'm going to put the fifth one together, and everybody on lockdown, hopefully, they'll have time to let me have their experiences. So that's why I'm doing the fifth one. But no, I think, those two people, the pirate era will be quite fascinating.
And like I mentioned, there's the 3 books that you have out, and you did bring out a 4th book last year. And can you just tell us a little bit about that book?
Yeah, the 4th one is Hellhound Spirits and Psychics. It's a little bit different because I haven't had many stories in the others from psychics, but in this one I've got quite a few. And it's just a little bit different to the other 3. Basically, it's a lot of stories again. And I suppose one team giving a lot of their experiences as well, which, as I say, Cause Paranormal did in the first 1 or 2, but it seems to come back again in the 4th book. But not from them, of course, but, different teams with different experiences, having their team members, submitting something for everybody anyway. So that's nice. It just shows that people, do listen sometimes.
I know. It's and it's the books, I suppose. Before we go on to, would you like to read, before we go on, how people can purchase a book or how they can contact you? Would you be able to read as an extract from the book, Possessions, Ghosts, and Guardian Angels?
Yeah, I shall. The first one, actually, there are 2, but this one, it's from a guy called P. Jackson, who is a team member of COPI. And it actually helped me naming the book as well. Because what I do, all of my books, I make the titles relevant to its content. So it says, this is a personal experience I had about 5 or 6 years ago on my way to work in the city. We lived at the time near Algonquin Park in Northern Ontario, Canada. I'm a firefighter, and working the shifts I work, I had to leave home at around 4:30 in the morning to make it to the city in time for my shift. This particular time, I had an old Chrysler Sebring. The headlights on my car were way out of adjustment, and in fact, I had ordered new ones that I was waiting for. This long stretch of highway is very secluded, and I rarely ever saw another vehicle, other than a bread delivery truck that will pass me going in the other direction. There was never any fear of seeing any police along that road, as it's away from the populated areas. The road itself is smooth, long, twisty, with numerous banks and bends, weaving its way between towering rock cuts through granite. It was not uncommon to see a lot of wildlife along the road as well, ranging from raccoons and porcupines to deer and moose. This particular morning, I made my coffee, gathered my things, and headed to work. As I wound my way through the huge rock cuts and smooth winding road, I came around a bend about halfway along the route. In the dip in the road ahead, I could make out very dim lights flashing. As I slowed down and approached the car from behind, it was their four-way flashers on, but they, as I said, were barely visible. The car itself was a late 70s or 80s maroon-coloured Ford LTD. I've not seen one of those on the road for years before this and haven't seen one since. I realised the car was sitting still in the westbound lane. I pulled around into the oncoming lane and stopped with my passenger side close to the driver's door. I put my window down and looked over at the driver of the other car. It was a single person, a woman, in the driver's seat, wearing glasses with dark shoulder-length curly hair. I asked her, "Are you okay? Are you having car trouble?" She turned to look at me, her hands on the steering wheel at the 10 and 2 position, and then turned back, looking straight ahead. No expression on her face as she spoke. "I'm not from around here. I don't know the roads, and there are 2 moose right ahead." She never turned to look at me again. Her voice didn't change pitch at all. She then said, "Do you want to go ahead?" I said, "Sure." I slowly pulled ahead of her and back into the westbound lane. I was probably sitting there talking to her for maybe 2 to 3 minutes. As I started moving up around the bend and in between the rock cut, maybe a distance of 150 to 250 feet, there they were, 2 large moose trotting in the westbound lane. I slowly pulled behind them, and I could hear their hooves clomping along the pavement. I gave the horn a little honk to see if they would move off the road. Instead, they turned, looking back at me, and kept going. Once we got to the other end of the rock cut, they ran up the hill into the woods and were gone. I looked into my car's rearview mirror, and to my surprise, there were no cars behind me. Corner after corner and straightways, I never saw any lights or the car again, as if it just vanished. If she was afraid of driving along the road, it makes no sense that she would have gone anywhere. In fact, I think the opposite, that she would have been right behind me. I didn't tell anyone about this for a couple of weeks, including my wife. I was trying to make sense of it. I was thinking that at that time of night, it would have been around that bend in the road at a speed around 80 miles an hour. Most people that hit a moose do not survive it, let alone 2 moose and a solid granite rock wall at that speed. How could I have heard her talking in a normal low voice over 2 cars running and her not even looking at me, other than a brief second as if she was checking who I was and that car? As I said, I haven't seen one for years leading up to that night, and I have not seen one since. I couldn't even say for sure that her car was running. I told my wife a couple of weeks later, and she said to me, "I have to tell you something, and it makes zero." I told my wife a couple of weeks later and said to her, "I have to tell you something, and it makes 0 sense to me." And I explained the encounter to her, and she looked at me with shock on her face as she said, "You met your guardian angel." I've had it explained to me by a team member that she manifested the car herself, and that took a lot of energy. That's why the lights were so dim, and she knew I would stop to help her and not just drive around and keep going. I'm totally convinced that had she not been there at that spot on that night at that exact time, I would most likely not be here today. I was told after that there was a reason she did what she did, and that I had another reason to have it happen. Shortly after this, I rescued a woman from a house fire, and often wonder if that wasn't the reason.
Okay, and that's amazing there, and I think we've come across that. I've read that before. I've because it is in the same book that contributed to there, and was A nice story there. I think we've gotten a lot of people coming in now with questions. There must be something wrong with the studio that we're working in there. I've just suddenly lost Erica for
I'm
second.
still here.
Can you hear me there, Erica?
I can hear you
me?
fine.
Okay. Yep. Perfect. I can hear you there. I've just suddenly lost you on screen now. But we have a few people are actually coming in with questions there. So I'm going to put them forward there. So we have Mary Nolan. You can still hear me anyway,
Yes. Yeah.
Erica, can you?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Mary Nolan has said, you've inspired me to write down all the stories passed to me by all those I met over the years as a tour guide in a haunted house. Food for thought. And Mary Nolan worked at Loftus Hall. Recently been in the news. Hello, Mary. And Mary's part of Back in Time Paranormal Investigators, and they would love to share their experiences to us. So we'll give the details of Erica, how to contact her at the end of the show. Hugh James from County Antrim Paranormal Research Association says, hi, Anthony. I think I wrote the answer to the quiz earlier the first time you said, don't know if you saw it. Hi to Erica. Nice to meet you. I'll look out for your books. Yeah, do, Hugh. They're great books. They're collectible. There's links on our website, on our Facebook page, sorry, to the Amazon page, or if you want to contact Erica yourself, we'll pass on the details to you there. If you can write the answer, yeah, I think he's got the answer as well, which is good. So Michelle, I'll come to that. You're all coming in the questions there. Okay. Michelle Labard says, that's exciting. What did it look like? I think that's to do because we've been slow on the messages coming in there. Sorry, Michelle, I don't know what is that in reference to. Hugh says, is it psychometry? You are right, Hugh. You are correct. So you go in twice in the door. Woo! So the answer was psychometry, to feel, and the third clue was going to be to find facts about an object or owner. That was right. It's psychometry. Mary Nolan has come back and says there is a good and evil, light and dark in every aspect of life. So I believe that there are angels and demons.
Yes.
Jerry Michelle Beaver says, I need a demonologist. as Erica said there before, is it Gavin? Is it the demonologist?
Yes.
Is that the gentleman's name? Yeah. If there's anybody out there that has any concerns about what anything in light of the subject there, just contact Erica as well. She might be able to pass it on to as well, Gavin.
Yeah.
Hugh James says, hi, there's a psychometry. Yeah, you're right there.
Just in
That's
time,
right, Hugh.
too late.
Just before Jerry says, oh, another place to add to my list. I think that's Leb Castle she might have been on about. Mary Nolan, good evening, everyone. Mary here from Back in Time Paranormal Investigators. When I worked at Loftus Hall, I loved hearing the stories from people who had connections to the hall spanning decades. I have gathered quite a few. So
love to have them.
Yeah, do share them away there, Mary. Michael Ryan says, I was in the West Wing of jail. This is probably Cork City Jail. And I saw a lady in white coming out of cell 13. I continued to go into the cell and saw a mannequin of a young girl. I was going around the jail. Then came outside. I walked around the inner wall by the hospital. I felt something catch my hand and I felt weak and sick. I then heard a woman's voice say, please take me to the gate and set me free. Now, we have at GhostÉire recently investigated Cork City Jail with a Cork Supernatural Society, a team based in Cork. And there is accounts of women dressed in, seen of apparitions of women dressed at the jail, and also children as well. And they are quite often seen. Cell 13, I would not be too sure where that is. But but I know that block of the jail, I think it's the west block of the jail, is supposed to be haunted. Eugene Dawn says, "Hi Erica, enjoying reading your books I've just got." So Eugene says he's reading the books. Jerry Michelle Beavers says, "I love some crazy investigations." Eugene says, "Good evening, guys." Now, so we're all getting to your messages now. Good evening, guys, from Eugene. My sister says, "Hey, hello." That's my sister. Lindsay says, "I got dodgy Wi-Fi, bloody gale force winds." I think that could be the weather might be affecting as usual. Great stuff. Will do, thanks. So that's Hugh James. Cheers, mate. So Hugh's in for the draw. Jerry says, "I don't need a demonologist, I want one again." And I think Hugh says, "I have met Gavin." Hugh James from County Antrim Paranormal Research Association, also known as CAPA, says, "I have met Gavin. He did some work for me, came all the way down to me, didn't even charge for petrol money. A really sound bloke and very dedicated to what he does."
Yep.
So thank you for the comments, everyone. There, I'm sorry now that it's just suddenly something's happened now. All the comments are coming in, and Erica is. I can't see Erica.
Disappeared into the
tell me, Erica, how can we where's your contact details first?
Right.
If you
the easiest thing to do is, if you want to contact me, I'm Erica Gammon on my Facebook page. You can send me a message, and I can send you details. Or if you want to skip that and just say where you heard me, request stories from, because I'm always on the lookout, you can email me, which is easiest, at gammonsghosts@gmail.com. So that's Gammons, like my surname, with an S on the end, ghosts, all one word, @gmail.com. And if you say where you found or heard of me, brilliant.
And we have a link up there on a previous post there if you're interested in purchasing the books they're available Kindle from Amazon, and available in paperback as well. Would you like to say how much they are, Erica?
I think they're $8.99 for the
divulge,
and I'm not sure about the Kindle version, but they're worth it. Definitely worth a read. Even just to read how other people have coped with their experiences, really.
And if you're watching this or looking back, on this, do feel free to contact Erica there. How long, or does it have to be long? It could be a short story, it could be a long story, whatever you feels comfortable to let everyone know about. And I've just got a poll here. This was to do about the dolls. So Erica, so the first book you did was Ghosts, Demons and Dolls, and we did a poll, everyone. Now, some of you are a bit reluctant to try and probably vote on this there, but we have the results, and this was to do with, do dolls and puppets have supernatural qualities? And the answer was, you all voted mostly. As you can see, it's a complete white donut. It's 100% yes. So do dolls and puppets hold supernatural qualities? And we have 100% yes. And maybe it was just me that voted. So there's the results there. I know. Somebody said they did vote, and then I said I voted, so it can't be right. One of us is telling a lie. I'm not too sure. But just going back to the quiz then, as we said there, we got the answer there, and the answer, having a few technical problems there. So with the with the quiz there, the answer was psychometry. I'll just pop it there. It was PSY CHOMEBRY.
I got the first bit.
I think it's spelled that though. Yeah, I think I've spelled it right, Erica. Anyway, I'm not too sure there.
There is one other thing I would like to say.
Yeah, go ahead there, Erica.
Coming out for Halloween called The Real Paranormal. I've actually been asked if I would be a regular contributor to that. It comes out quarterly. So if you want to hear any more of my ramblings, I shall be contributing to that. And the first one is called Tech or No Tech? That is the question. So, but you know, what I personally think about, you know, tech on investigations, really.
And your opinion, is it another podcast? Is there another podcast you're coming on as well soon?
It's
or
an
another
magazine. It's an e-magazine.
Oh,
and it's going, as I say,
and just okay. I'm not too sure if we heard. They probably might have heard. They might not be hearing me. But just a few more questions coming in, or people coming in. And Mary says, "Great, Erica. I'll send you some stories." So that's Mary Nolan from Back in Time Paranormal Investigators.
Perfect.
Mary would know a lot about people's experiences there, especially with Loftus Hall. But Mary goes all around the country with Back in Time Paranormal Investigators, and Hugh as well. Great stuff. I'll look up the books to purchase. Thanks there. And if you have any stories there, you put them forward to Erica there as well. I think that's about it there, folks. There. I'm sorry now all the messages came in there in one big bulk there, like I've been talking for about 5 minutes. But thank you, Erica, there. Thank you for joining us this evening there. And the next 2 weeks, we're having a break for the next 2 weeks. And on the next show, we have the Howley Files X. This is with Melissa and Chris Howley. So they're on in 2 weeks' time. We'll probably have a Ouija hour coming up then, and after that, and then we'll be talking to another team at the end of the month called Supernatural Society. So join us then in 2 weeks' time. Thank you, Erica.
Thank you very much for having me.
And you're the voice there behind me now. And say hello to Roger for me, and love to everyone. And love to you viewers that are out there, and have a great bank holiday weekend. Stay safe and enjoy it. Hopefully the weather's great where you are. And Slanger for I go Scar Margaret.
Happy hunting.
Goodbye for now.
Bye.
Bye.